suffered significant damage. There were threats against its employees. I am sympathetic to the concerns that they faced. Having said all that, yes, I think they made a mistake.
The president talking about Sony. Joining us now is Gordon Chang, Asia expert and Forbes columnist, and welcome back. Great to see you always, sir. All right, so the president said Sony made a mistake, but before I want to get to something, the president also said, when asked about how would we retaliate against North Korea, he said proportionally, in our own place, in our own time, and that's all he would say about that. And then he was asked also, were there any other countries involved? Because we had heard that, you know, China, Russia, whatever, and he said no. He was pretty definitive about that. React to that first, and then talk about you know, the retaliation that we should, in your view, you know, put upon North Korea.
Well, earlier this week, there's a New York Times report where David Sanger spoke to administration officials who said that China was involved in North Korea's hacking. Today, Fox News is reporting that law enforcement officials have said that the North Koreans were working with another country, and they speculated Russia, Iran, China. And clearly, from what we know about open sources, China was deeply involved in this North Korean hacking. So I think that when we start to look and see more facts, and they will come out over time, we'll see that the president's statement on this is incorrect.
Incorrect or purposely untrue for political purposes, perhaps, especially if it was Iran, especially if it was China, or even Russia at this point. Maybe he doesn't want to, you know, muddy the water.
Well, that could very well be the case, that he's having discussions with the Chinese about trying to separate them from their North Korean allies, and maybe he felt that it would be impolitic to discuss this in open. I really don't know, but it seems to me we've had these relations with China where we're sort of afraid of them. We're not willing to say in public that which is obvious, and I think we need to change that, because otherwise the Chinese will think we're afraid of them, and that is going to lead to even worse results. So I think that the policy formulation that underlies that statement is incorrect.
So do you believe that it was China? Because you and I have talked before about the very close connection between China and North Korea, obviously. Do you believe that they had a hand in this in some way, shape, or form?
Well, they certainly did, because the hackers against Sony were using Chinese IP addresses. You know, China has the Great Firewall, which is the most sophisticated set of internet controls. They would see any bit of data, especially terabits of data, which have been crossing China's Great Firewall. So they had to know what was going on. Also, Unit 121, which is a unit of North Korean hackers, probably their best hackers that they have, based not in North Korea, but in the Chinese city of Shenyang, which is about 3 hours drive from the North Korean border. And as well, we know that North Korean hackers have been trained in both Russia and China. So there is deep involvement going over the course of years between Beijing and Pyongyang when it comes to cyber attacks.
So to go back one more time, I know you can't get inside his head as to why he did it, but you'd have to believe, based on what you're telling me, you know, the president has to know this too, right? I mean, he had to know when he stood there and said there was no other involvement, that he was being less than honest, for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, of course, presidents sometimes do this when they think that there's a greater good, but I think, as I said, that the policy formulations, the assumptions that we have in our relations with China are flawed. And these policy formulations are just not of this president. It's one of the president before, and actually going back to Nixon. I think we've got this wrong from the get-go.
And what should we do to retaliate? Was the president right in his saying, well, I'm not going to talk about it, we'll do it proportionately at our own time, our own place? What would you like to see us do?
I would have said, instead of using the word proportional, which is the favorite word, I would use effective. We will do something effective to stop the North Koreans from doing this. So, for instance, we could put in place the sanctions that the Bush administration had in 2005 when we cut the North Koreans off from the global financial system. And I would certainly enforce Security Council resolutions that go against the North Koreans for the sale of ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons technology. We need to do that in any event, but we need to make the regime hurt. You know, he blamed Sony for what they did. You know, Sony was doing what any company would do. They were put in a position by bad American policy of this administration, and especially the one before, which really were not willing to deal with cyber attacks.
Okay, not to cut you off. What do we have to fear most? I mean, when Sony says they were threatened for a bigger attack, 9/11 type, everybody thought it was a bomb type thing. I'm thinking maybe they could they take down our power grid today?
Yes, well, the North Koreans probably, the Chinese certainly. There have been all sorts of speculation about who caused the great 2003 blackout. And some people say that it was actually a Chinese hacker who made a mistake. That cascaded all sorts of problems in the United States, which shows the weakness of our grid, but also its vulnerability to foreign hacking.
Would they be ready to do that now?
No, because they don't see that to be in their interest. But if we ever got into a contentious situation with China, this is something that the Chinese would do, and I would hope that this is something that we would do.
Yeah, preferably before they would do it to us. Yeah. Gordon, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming in. I know it's a very busy time for you. Gordon Chang, ladies and gentlemen. Up next, we're going to be joined by Richard Marshall. Now, Richard Marshall was a cybersecurity expert for the Department of Homeland Security. He's now advising on the board of a private security firm, so we'll get his perspective on the cyber threat that we face. And when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus almost 60 years ago, she sparked the beginning of a new chapter in the civil rights movement. 60 years ago. The Montgomery bus boycott, easy for me to say. Let's take a look back now at that historic day with this hour's American Moment.
Her name is synonymous with the struggle for equal rights throughout America. But when Rosa Parks stepped on that Montgomery, Alabama bus on December 1st, 1955, she didn't set out to make history. She just wanted to get home. Montgomery's segregated buses had divided seating, white passengers in front, colored passengers in the back. Contrary to popular belief, Rosa was sitting in the back of the bus. But when the bus driver needed more seats for his white passengers, he ordered her and 3 others to vacate their seats. The others complied and moved, but Rosa quietly refused and was quickly arrested. Working alongside Dr. Martin Luther King, Rosa's arrest sparked a highly effective citywide protest with African Americans boycotting city buses.
December 5th was the day that people stayed off in large numbers and did not ride the bus. In fact, most of the buses, I think all of them were just about empty.
Rosa's protest and resulting boycott didn't end segregation, but it sparked a movement that ended the racial system, paving the way for a more equal society. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.